Hello, and welcome to Blank Plate, a podcast for Swifties with an appetite.
I'm Sarah, and I used to be a little kid with glasses and a twin-size bed.
I'm Laura, and I'm a mess, but I'm the mess that you wanted.
And we've got a blank plate, baby, and we'll write your name. Welcome
Sarah
back.
Sarah and I were just saying we're so out of touch because it may not feel like this way to you all, but we haven't actually recorded this podcast for a long time. We batch recorded our last couple, so
yeah, it's been a month since we recorded.
Yeah. I mean, I'm proud of us for maintaining our schedule. Patreon people, we were a little bit behind, but don't worry, we got you.
Right.
But it is crazy that it's been this long since we've recorded.
Yeah. Yeah. You and I haven't FaceTimed like this since you left for your trip.
Have we texted every single day? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is weird. That's why whenever Luke's I haven't seen Sarah in so long, I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah. I know. Poor Luke. He's always left out.
I know. And he's the ultimate FOMO guy. So yeah.
He is. Yeah.
But of course, being in person is better than FaceTime. But this is our weekly catch up and
right.
Obviously Taylor information, but
Yeah. Sometimes we chat for another half an hour when we're done recording.
Yeah, or 20 minutes before. It just depends.
Right.
Also, I love that you said this in our last episode, but we literally give ourselves weekly homework, absolute losers, to research each episode. So I
know.
And it's a group project because we'll hop on our show notes and I'm looking at what Sarah wrote when I wasn't thinking about it. And I'll be like, oh, that's so smart.
Yeah. And then I'll come back and see notes you added. And then it makes me think of something.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Everyone should have a friend like this if you're a Swiftie. Really.
Also, we could never do this podcast off the cuff. We would miss so much if we were just okay, let's chat about this one today.
I think we would surprise ourselves, but yeah.
It's much more organized this way.
Yes. But there is a method behind the madness. So if you've been listening and you're are they just that smart? No, we've been
No.
We have notes and notes and notes and notes. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, speaking of being back, how was your trip?
Trip was amazing. We were gone for pretty much a month and got back 48 hours ago. Haven't been jet lagged. Knock on wood.
Oh.
So
okay.
That's good. I think the trick that I've learned is if you're flying from Europe back to the East Coast, leave at 6 to 7 p.m. and just push through because you land around 2 a.m. But it's really 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. on the East Coast. And then just push through a couple hours and then you're fine.
Oh, okay.
So were we exhausted when we landed? Sure. But we ended up getting on a pretty regular sleep routine since coming back. But anyway, the trip was really good. We went to Scandinavia, saw some fjords, and ate some amazing pastries all around Copenhagen, which I just have to say, everybody is sleeping on Copenhagen. It's clean. It's beautiful. It's the weather was a perfect, crisp, fall feeling every single day. People bike everywhere. Everyone's gorgeous. And most importantly for us foodies, the pastry game and the restaurant game there is just unreal.
Yeah. I mean, I was following along on your Instagram stories, which everyone should be following you if they're not already.
I'm really fun for a month of the year. And then after that, it just falls off. But yeah.
But you share stuff pretty regularly and you have your whole vibe that you put out there. Whether you're traveling or not, it's still a vibe,
It's a vibe.
But yeah, I was following along and it just looked amazing. And I was thinking I would just love to third wheel sometime with you and Luke on one of these trips because I trust you guys completely. I would be so happy to just be okay, what are we doing today? I would have the best time.
No, I mean, I will say it's funny you say that because Luke was saying the reason why I was so tired when I got back from the US and I was like, I'm not leaving the couch, is because like I've been on navigator duty for like a month where
That's true.
I'm the
Yeah.
one with the Google Maps up and I'm the one who knows what time a reservation is and how long it's going to get there. And like, meanwhile, Luke is like 2 steps behind me being like, doo, 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 doo.
So he gets to be like, what are we doing today?
He is passenger princess
Uh-huh.
entire way. But I will say, like, Luke being an extrovert comes in handy because, like, I'll get us there. I'll plan the whole thing. Like, you know, the day is like structured. There's some time for like downtime and relaxation. But as soon as we get to our destination, like a restaurant, I just like throw him to the waiters and the staff. And like, he's so like gregarious and chatty. Like, he'll be like, you know, I just like throw him in front and be like, order for us, like talk to the people so I don't have to. So yeah, but it
So
is
you
really
can
fun.
turn off in
And
that way.
I feel like, yes, I feel like I'm very happy to not have to have my Google Maps open right now. But I mean, obviously, do I wish I was back there? 100%. So
yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah,
Well,
it
it
would be
looks
so fun
amazing.
if you came because yeah.
Yeah. Dream trip.
So
My mom
what's
even
going on?
said something like, their trip looks so great.
I have been sharing a lot. So like, yeah. It does sort of feel like a last hurrah, like a, I don't know. We told each other like we're just sending it because like who knows if we're traveling next summer. Like we just don't know.
Who knows?
Things may be changing. So yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Anyway.
So
what's going on with you, Sarah?
my past month has not been nearly as glamorous, although just had some thunder here, but we have fallen into our summer routine of doing some mini golfing, and we've been to a couple movies already. Just trying to do it up in the summer. I've been going to the parks a lot. But yeah, the last month for me has been like a little crazy because we did our first embryo transfer at the beginning of June. And then so mid-June, it was confirmed that it failed. So that was a huge bummer in my IVF journey. And like going into it, I kept telling myself like, oh, there's like a good chance it won't work. Like it's very common. Like you maybe have like a 2/3 chance of it, the embryo transfer being successful and stuff. But I was really surprised how upset I actually was when it failed and like how angry I was. I was really surprised. Because if you've been following along, we had to do IVF with donor eggs. So like my DNA is not involved in this embryo. But obviously, I'm going to be hopefully carrying one of these embryos to completion at some point. And we ended up with 4 viable embryos. So yeah, when this one didn't work, I was really angry, which was surprising to me because it's like, I've already been through so much, and I know other people who have had embryo transfers and the first one worked. And I'm like, okay, well, why couldn't I have at least had that experience,
Right. After everything you've been through.
Yeah. And also it was our only female embryo and I really wanted a girl. So that's also now out the window, which was a huge bummer as well. And yeah, it like brought up a ton of fear for me that like, I was like, well, what if none of them work? What if we went through all this and none of them work? So that is kind of like the mental state I've been working through. And of course, I go into like problem solving mode. Like I'm like trying to gain control back of this situation.
Yeah.
So I've ultimately decided that before we throw another embryo in there, since we now only have 3 left, And ideally, we would love to have 2 children from these 3 embryos. So like now we're asking a lot of these 3 embryos. So I've decided to do 2 extra tests on my uterus before doing that. Because at this point with me, like if there's something wrong with me that's causing an embryo transfer to fail, it's going on inside my uterus and something that we haven't looked at yet. And since we suspect that I have endometriosis, like there could definitely be something going on inside that we haven't seen yet. So
Yeah.
you don't like typically do these tests after only one failed transfer, but my clinic is also like, hey, whatever you're comfortable with, like you have to be comfortable moving forward
Yeah.
with another embryo transfer. And like it is really important to me to talk about all of this, to just like raise awareness of the IVF process and what it's like for people. I feel like basically everyone knows at least one person who's dealt with this,
Yes.
but you don't always know like the ins and outs of it and everything. And also like if you don't care about this stuff, like please feel free to skip ahead. We do include timestamps, in our episode description, so you can skip ahead to the Taylor talk. I totally get it. But yeah, like in the like idea of being fully transparent, I also want to mention how much money we have spent to get here, because we were very fortunate that our insurance covered $20,000 of infertility coverage. And we burned through that pretty quickly with my egg retrieval that we tried back in December with my own eggs. That was a failure. And then with fertilizing the eggs that we bought, the donor eggs. So that 20,000 goes very quickly. And so then on top of that, we have now spent $50,000 of our own money. And a lot of that went towards just purchasing the donor eggs because it's very expensive. So, and I say all that partially again to like raise awareness of what this process is like, but also because with our embryos being from donor eggs, like these, I keep saying like these embryos are more precious than your typical IVF embryo. And of course, they're all precious to everybody. But I mean, we're talking like each embryo is worth about $10,000, okay?
Right.
If not more. So the thought of throwing another embryo just into my body, which also that's a crazy experience, like with how much money I spent, that they just put it in you and then they're like, okay, just go home. And you're like,
what?
Like this embryo is just floating around inside my uterus. Like now we're just waiting for it to do what it's supposed to do is just insane. But yeah, so that's why I was like, I don't want to do another embryo transfer.
Yeah.
And have that one fail and then go do these tests.
Yeah.
And God forbid we find out there's something we have to address. And it's like, okay, well, why didn't we do that earlier?
Right.
Because now I've wasted 2 of my 4 embryos, which is just unthinkable to me. So that's how I landed at that decision. And, I'm feeling a little bit, I guess I'm feeling in control again of this situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ideally, we'll do these tests and everything will come back fine and normal. And then we can just proceed and hope for the best. But it's a crazy process. And
we need to normalize these, like, especially with you being extremely transparent with everyone, like, enormous kudos to you for that, because not only is it scary to share that and vulnerable to share that, but also like there are so many women who have or will go through this similar process to you, and maybe they don't have anyone that they can actually understand. You know what I mean? Like these are the conversations as women that we need to be having more often. And normalizing this type of like transparency, because like it is not only excruciating and emotional. Like just
Mhm.
being a friend to you during this process. Like I constantly am just like, I don't understand how Sarah's just like perpetually able to like overcome this, overcome this. Like it's insane
Yeah.
to me. And like I can only grasp it about 10%, you know, like,
Mhm.
and I know like down the line, if we have to go through anything, like I know if I go to you, like you're going to be like all over it. Like you'll be like,
Right.
yep, like
Yeah.
totally, this is what you can expect. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I just feel like we need to like, if you're going through IVF, if you're having infertility issues, like we're
Mhm.
definitely better now than our parents' generation, but
Yeah, so much better. And
yeah.
also like what we had talked about before, I think when I first shared about going through this is like people talk about IVF as this option that's available to everyone.
Yes.
And first of all, it doesn't work for everyone. Like the way it I went through it where my eggs are not a possibility. They're just you can't fertilize eggs that basically don't exist. Okay. So there's like that end of it, but then also the financial aspect, which
Mm-hmm.
again is why I bring it up because it's like we, between the insurance and our own money, there have been $70,000 spent and I have still never been pregnant.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, like I'm still months away from being pregnant, hopefully. And it's been like exactly a year since I first went to the fertility clinic.
Yeah.
And actually, like what Josh and I have accomplished as part of this process in a year is crazy.
Yeah.
Like how much stuff we've actually done. It's just been nonstop. Like,
It's literally your job in addition to your job.
hmm
Like the amount of
yeah,
appointments, the amount of like conversations you have to have, the back and forth, like I
yeah,
mean,
the
it's insane.
acupuncture.
Yeah, like
Like,
all of it. Like
yeah. And yeah, it's like changing my diet, like being careful of this and doing that. It's like I feel like all I do is think about this and prepare my body for this.
yeah.
And that's why I think so many couples when they've been going through it for a while without success, they often will like take a break because they're just like I can't do
Yeah.
this anymore. Which thankfully I'm not at that point. Like I'm not planning to slow down at all.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, like it's just a lot. So it kind of worked out perfectly for me that we took like a month break because when all that happened, it allowed me to really just like take care of
Yeah.
myself and
Take a
process all of
breather.
that,
Mhm.
which I'm still doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially in those first like 2 weeks after the bad news, it was rough.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, not like the most fun summer. It was also like the week of Father's Day and my birthday.
Yeah.
So that
Not
wasn't great.
not great timing. No.
Yeah. And then I like went to Target and had to get a Father's Day card. And I was
My God.
and this is like the weekend I basically found out I wasn't pregnant. And then also being at Target, I was so annoyed at every person with kids. I
Yeah.
was just
Well,
like
yeah.
every
Yeah.
person with kids, I was annoyed. I was like, I bet you didn't have to try to have your kids. Yeah.
Well,
And
then like the stages of like grief are just like insane. And like
yeah.
a failed IVF transfer, especially after everything that you have gone through, is something to grieve. Like it is not a
Mhm.
normal thing to just like, you know, there's just like
Yeah.
hope and there's like and then when that's lost, it's just devastating. Like
Mhm.
and like
Yeah.
it's just one of those things too where like when someone has something that like you are trying to achieve, you're like happy for those people, but at the same time you're also like
Mhm.
why don't I have that? Especially when I'm working this
Yeah.
hard in your case. Do you know what I mean? It's not
Oh yeah.
fair.
The resentment is very real.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm thankful that I do feel like I'm able to hold both of those emotions at the same time. Like you're happy
Yeah.
for the people you know,
Yeah.
but you also feel this like resentment. And my therapist even said she's like, I want you to be annoyed with the people at Target. Like that's good. Like
You're
you should
allowed.
be feeling
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, thank you for the permission because It's a very real feeling. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, through it all, Taylor gives us something to celebrate and
Well,
think
before
about.
we move on, I just have to say that we've texted many times about this, but I'm still so sorry that happened and that it's been such a hard struggle for you, because if there's anyone who's deserving to be an amazing parent, it's you and Josh. So
Thank
my
you.
heart is just broken with you, and I'm standing beside you, and I'm here if you know.
Thank you. Now you're making me cry.
Is it a podcast if one of us doesn't cry?
I know. We always cry.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, thank you. And I really appreciate your support and your friendship through all this too.
Yeah.
Laura has been great. So have many, many of my friends and people in my life. I'm really fortunate that I have such a good support network, which if you are going through this, I really recommend telling everybody.
Seriously.
I really do. Because it did suck to have so many people to tell when the transfer failed. But it also, I almost started crying in the room when I was waiting for the transfer to happen, because I was actually just really thinking about and envisioning all of the people who were thinking of me and sending positive energy my way. I really felt it. I felt overwhelmed by it.
Oh, that's sweet.
So that's why I was like, you know what? If this does fail, like it did, and I have to tell these people, it's still worth it, because it's just so nice. The amount of people who texted me on the day of the transfer, who checked in with me afterwards, it really makes a difference, I think, rather than just me and Josh doing this alone and not really bringing people in.
Yeah.
And
more people should be brought into this, because the amount of embarrassingly crude questions that people ask in this world, I hope every single person who asks, when are you having a baby, has someone in their life actually expose how not easy it can be. It's not something you should ask someone. So.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
That's another conversation that we've talked about a lot. So there you go. Yep.
Anyway, shall we move on to Taylor updates?
Taylor updates. I mean, my goodness, I woke up one random day on our trip and saw that Taylor Swift was just performing Shake It Off in Nashville, because what? And then both of us, I'm sure, were like, wait, what is Tight End University? What is this? Meanwhile, I asked Luke and he's like, oh, yeah, of course.
Oh,
okay.
He knew what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I had already heard of it from, just following Travis, because of Taylor. But yeah, so Tight End University was founded by Travis and a few other players, and it's an immersive 3-day program for tight ends to come together and learn, bond, collaborate. It's like a little tight end camp, summer camp.
Yeah. Community building,
Yeah.
All that fun stuff.
And I guess it was in Nashville.
Yeah.
So Taylor first showed up at the welcome party, which was at a bar in Nashville. She showed up with Travis, and they were just hanging out. But I guess normal people were there, or people somehow associated with Tight End University were there. They didn't necessarily know that Taylor was coming, and so she was literally taking selfies with ladies in the bathroom. Can you imagine?
No. I would be just
a drunk girl's bathroom with Taylor Swift in it, and you take selfies?
If I were drunk in a bathroom and I looked in the mirror next to me and I saw Taylor Swift, I simply would think I'm hallucinating. There's no way.
No. Which reminds me, my cousin's girlfriend is a huge Swiftie, and she shared on her story the other day. She must have told me and I must have forgotten. I don't know how, but she met Taylor at some 1989 event back in 2015.
Wow.
So she has a selfie, a picture with Taylor and another friend And so I was like, wait, did I not know about this? Like, tell me what happened. And I was like, was she incredible? You know, so she
Yeah,
was
what did
saying
she smell like?
how like Taylor was so nice, but so my cousin's girlfriend was wearing a flower crown, and apparently Taylor grabbed her face, like her hands on her face, and was like, "Oh my God, you look like a fairy."
that would be like my Instagram bio. That would be on my LinkedIn account. Like that would be
Right.
on my resume. Like that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, but so yeah, she said she was amazing and she'll never forget
Wow.
it. Of course.
Insane.
Right.
Insane.
So that was night one at the welcome party. And then the next night at Tight End University, there was this Tight Ends and Friends benefit concert. And Taylor ended up doing an impromptu performance, acoustic performance of Shake It Off. It had like a very country vibe to it. And she was joined by the country singer Kane Brown on stage, who played the tambourine for her.
So Kane Brown was actually the benefit concert performer.
Oh, was he like the headliner, I guess?
Yeah, he's a big country artist, and like his band accompanied Taylor, like backed her basically. And I have to say, when it came out that she hand wrote the chord progression for the band with like little like scratch marks and stuff, I was like, I love this so much, because that is like, as a music teacher, just made my heart so happy to know that of course I know that Taylor knows the chord progression. She's writing the music, but like to see her like write it out and think like, okay, these people have never played with me. Like I want to make sure I get all the counts right. And like she like took the time to do that, which I do have a theory that she chose Shake It Off because number one, it is probably her most recognizable for like older band members who maybe don't know her whole discography, but also the chord progression of Shake It Off is so straightforward. Like it's just like, of course she chose that song.
Yeah.
It makes sense. So like it's insane. It's just insane.
Yeah. So I guess the whole thing seemed to be planned / confirmed like minutes before it happened, which is why she's backstage like hastily writing the chords for the band. And it was just like a last minute thing that it's when Travis talked about it, it sounded like she maybe had the thought like before being there. And then
she was like, how loud can we get this audience? Like how loud can we get this crowd?
And then she was probably like, yeah, I think I want to do it. So let me talk to the band and like, you know. But I will say that from the videos of it, the crowd was not into it enough. Sorry.
No.
But they were not.
I just love that like the internet exploded, and I loved people who were like sharing. They're like, I love supporting indie artists. I hope she makes it one day. And it's just like this video recording of Taylor Swift performing. It's just insane to me because like imagine you're going to a bar in Nashville and like you're like, yeah, I'm going to see Kane Brown. Like he's a big artist. Like I'm excited. And next thing you know, like Taylor freaking Swift is on the stage. Like part of me was like, were they shell shocked?
They might have been. Yeah,
like,
maybe.
I don't. There's no way I would have danced enough. Like you know, like there's no way. Oh, so her performance of this did remind me of like those other like kind of surprise performances where she just like pops up on stage and people are like, Taylor Swift is doing this. Like she's done this with Haim. She's done this with Bon Iver, the 1975.
Famously.
Iconic. But this definitely felt a little bit more off the cuff, like she was obviously in attendance to support Travis and his endeavors, but then, you know, to collaborate with these other artists is like a little bit more planned and a little bit more like of a conversation between artists. This just sort of seemed like something that was just, sure, why not? So,
right. I also love that we're talking about the Alchemy today being like a Travis song because I just think it's so lovely how this was his event, but he was still just so thrilled and excited to have Taylor get on stage and like have the spotlight on her like that. And then of course there are videos of him backstage just loving it and like
Yeah.
singing along and dancing. And just the way he's like proud of her.
I
Because
mean,
I think it would be totally reasonable for him to be like, well, this is my event. Like, it's probably best that we don't like pull the focus, because if you perform, then it becomes a Taylor Swift event.
yeah.
And instead he's just like, yeah, go play Shake It Off. That'll be so fun.
I just feel like it's not I don't know. I just think, yes, in her previous relationships, I could see her basically not wanting to like take anyone's shine and not step on anyone's toes, and I'm sure there is a side to her that still felt that way, just to be respectful, but their relationship is always been like proud of each other, supportive of each other in their own thing, and like there's a benefit concert, sure babe, go ahead. Like,
Right.
and it's business savvy, right? It's like now next year for Tight End University, us Swifties are going to be like, is Taylor going to be attending? Like, should we
Yeah.
perform again? Like, this is just
Right.
one of those things. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is perfect that we're doing the Alchemy, which is low-key a Travis song today.
Mhm.
So segueing
Right.
into that, we're talking about the Alchemy, which was obviously on TGPD, released April 19th, 2024, and was written and produced by Taylor and Jack Antonoff. Fountain quill or glitter gel pen, Sarah?
So we're thinking fountain pen with like a hint of glitter gel pen.
Just a smidge. Just a little smidgy.
Yeah, like a little sprinkle of glitter on top.
Yeah. Little gold dust on top.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sister song / related album. I like both of the ones that we chose. So why don't you share yours
Mhm.
first?
Okay, so my initial thought with this one was Gold Rush, because the alchemy is like,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of alchemy is kind of like turning something into gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my initial thought was Gold Rush, but then I was like, but do they really go together? And then I was like, wait, yes, they do. So I feel like the alchemy is like the yin to Gold Rush's yang,
Mm-hmm.
because like they both have this gold theme. The other thing about them is both songs are bookended by the same intro and outro. So we start and end in the same place for both the Alchemy and Gold Rush. And just so you know what I'm talking about, like this is the intro to Gold Rush, which is also ends up being the outro.
Gleaming, twinkling, eyes like sinking ships on waters, so inviting. I almost jump in, but I don't like a gold rush, gold rush.
Okay, so like that says I almost jump in, right? Gold Rush is like an anxious song about
Mm-hmm.
wanting someone who seems out of reach, and like the anxiety of that feeling, wanting to dive in, but knowing you can't and you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And the song feels anxious,
Yeah.
the way it pulses and moves. Whereas the alchemy is about a love that's so perfect, you can't ignore it. Like you have to dive in. And on the flip side, musically, it's very like strong and measured and just like
Mm-hmm.
steady, like confident.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like a weird sister to Gold Rush.
I like the yin and yang theory for that one, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I also see this as like a gold themed song. So when you wrote that, I was like, yep, for sure. So I chose Invisible String. I said it's like Invisible String's cousin, because Invisible String is like a little bit more reflective, like looking back in a relationship and like their stories and how they began, and then like how they eventually intertwine, and how like the romanticism of like how their stories were intertwined by an invisible string. While like this song feels like an early admission or recognition of that invisible string. There's like
Mm-hmm.
that spark that starts the string to string, if that makes sense.
Yes,
So
definitely.
like, yeah, invisible string's a little bit more reflective, a little bit more further along in this like relationship where you can look back and think about the invisible string. While as this is more like in the moment, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Yeah, it feels like it's like immediate, like that spark of like meeting someone who's changing your life and, you know, boldly going into it versus like, we've been in this for a long time. Anyway, so
Yeah. And as
um
for related album, we both agree that this is like a lover song.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Personal associations with this song. I mean, I remember hearing the word touchdown and being like, "Oh my god, what?" I was like,
Yeah.
"Touchdown." I was like, "Is she really writing about this?" Like, I could not believe my brain because at this point,
Mhm.
I think it's like track 15 or it's later in the original album.
Mhm. Yeah.
And at this point, like, I mean, we were on a roller coaster of like devastating anger, like post breakup, and then all of a sudden there's this
Mhm.
song where I'm like, "Excuse me? Is this
Right.
are we switching the modes that we are talking about?" So,
Yeah, because it's the first Travis song on the
mhm.
album, and we didn't think we would get a Travis song. So we were
No.
like, "What?"
Yeah, we were like blown.
Right. Um, which I actually said, like, when we first listened, I said it kinda sounded like an AI version of a song Taylor might write about Travis. Like, it's definitely more on the cheeky side than on her
Yeah.
poetic side, you
This is
know?
not a fountain pen, you know. Yeah.
Right. Well, it is a fountain pen technically, but it's not a quill
Sorry, a
pen.
quill pen. It's not a
Yeah.
quill pen moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So, also at first it was mostly a skip for me, but it grew on me a ton after she did it as a surprise song on guitar mashed up with Treacherous, which I ended up falling in love with because it was one of the very first ones that she released
Mhm.
like as a track on one of those like many digital deluxe versions of Tortured Poets. So, let me just play a clip of that to remind everybody.
I haven't come around in so long. I'm making a comeback to where I belong. So when I put your lips close to mine, as long as they don't touch.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
But,
That's a quick change right there, Taylor.
but yeah, it's something about the way she sang it for this surprise song made me fall in love with it more.
Mhm.
And yeah, this song is still not like one of my absolute favorites on TTPD, but it has grown on me for sure.
I kind of have beef with the production of this song,
Okay.
which I didn't
In
even
what way?
I just feel like it's kind of hokey. I feel like I I don't know. I feel like this is like you said the AI sort of sound. I think it's because it's a little predictable in its production.
Okay.
And when you hear her play like stripped back with just a guitar and her voice, you realize that like this is a good song. Like the lyrics, the melody is like really well done. But to me, like the dun dun dun, like there's something about the production that like doesn't rub
Mm-hmm.
me the right way, and I feel like it's not a song I turn on TTPD. But I understand why it's on there though, which we'll talk about. So
Right.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So folklore of the song. Obviously, there's a lot of football metaphors in here, which we can relate to Travis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I have heard a lot of people theorize that this was a song originally written about like her initial falling in love with someone like Maddie, but then later
Mm-hmm.
adding football metaphors, which is like an interesting take.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think you could read into that a little bit, but
Yeah.
I also find it interesting to compare this to like Taylor's decision to embrace her stardom / embrace who she is as like a star and basically like come into her own again.
Mm-hmm.
So the alchemy could be like taking this heartbreak, this disaster, and really becoming the star that she was meant to be. not hiding away in London, playing it cool with a cool hipster dude, but like really becoming Miss Americana, like returning to her roots in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I like that theory as well. So if you read it as a romantic song, for sure, but you could also take the lens of like, this happens once every few lifetimes, could literally be about her becoming famous. And
Mm-hmm.
anyway, there's a lot of ways you could take this song, besides the like straightforward one, which we definitely have a little bit more theories on. But
Yeah. I also think that it's important that she put this on the standard album, which in my mind, I always think that it's on the anthology side, but it's not. And it's the only Travis song on the main 16 tracks. But I think it is important because it highlights that it's part of the overall story she's telling with Tortured Poets of like what was going on in her life at that time and like how crazy everything was.
right.
So embracing her relationship with Travis after everything she went through is so important as part of that story.
Yeah. I also feel like she's pretty good at like cluing us in that like even though this was like a terribly devastating time of her life that this was recorded, like she's okay. Like there's this acknowledgement of like growth and also just that like where she's at now is a little bit more, happy. So
Yeah, definitely.
but yeah, I think when you think about the structure of TTPD, especially the original tracks,
Mm-hmm.
its inclusion makes sense in terms of like the structure of telling her story of the time that she was living. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
like it blows my mind that this song is on the main TTPD and not like the Black Dog, but
Mm-hmm.
I understand. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Should we get into it?
let's get into it. Here is verse 1.
This happens once every few lifetimes. These chemicals hit me like white wine. What if I told you I'm back? The hospital was a drag. Worst sleep that I ever had. I circled you on a map. I haven't come around in so long, but I'm coming back so strong.
So before we get into it, if you just look at the lyrics of verse 1 and you want to take it from the lens of like Taylor coming back to herself and like reclaiming her stardom and who she is, like this happens once every few lifetimes. These chemicals hit me like white wine. What if I told you I'm back? Like I'm back, baby. I'm kind of bejeweled vibes. The hospital was a drag, which we'll talk about. Worst sleep that I ever had. I circled you on a map. Like I'm setting my sights on like returning to who I am. I haven't come around in so long, but I'm coming back so strong. Like you could definitely see that as her own inner strength, right?
And coming back with like the Eras tour after
Yes.
having not toured for like 5 years.
Yeah. And
Definitely.
I just want to like start that off with like, I love that theory. I think that theory is great. Do I think it makes sense for like every verse of this song? No, but I think for the first one, that sort of lens makes sense. So
yeah.
All right. So this happens once every few lifetimes. These chemicals hit me like white wine. So like, if you're going to take it from the romantic lens, this type of love is rare, like kind of like lavender haze vibes. Like I'm in this like, I'm seduced by like the chemicals and the magic of like what's happening right now. I just want to like stay there in the lavender haze.
Right.
But I do love that she mentions white wine because my brain immediately connected to Maroon, because in Maroon there is a mention of a wine like basically being stained, which white wine doesn't stain the way that red wine does. And red wine is maroon. So like red wine is like dark and staining versus white wine being more like light and celebratory.
Mhm.
So kind of like the opposite of Maroon vibes going on here.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking that white wine feels more like happy Taylor. Like a white wine drunk is very much like white girl in the summer. You know?
Oh, yeah.
So like these chemicals
Or-
hit me
or-
like white wine
Girl at the football game.
or what?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Girl at
Or
the
is
football
it,
game.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
you know what I mean?
Taylor
Like-
drinking her white wine at the football game. But yeah, like it
Yeah.
seems more like celebratory. It's lighthearted. It's like a white wine drunk is like kind of, you know, silly and fun versus like Maroon, like you said, like drinking red wine that stains your clothes and stuff
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to play
Okay.
that clip of Maroon or
Oh, yeah. Let me play that.
just okay?
Here you
Rubber D on my t-shirt when you splashed your wine into me, and how the blood rushed into my cheeks, so scarlet it was.
What a
Yep.
bob. Anyway. Okay, what if I told you I'm back? The hospital was a drag.
Yep. So wait, what if I told you I'm back? Makes me think of, we don't have the clip, but in Willow where she says I come back stronger than a 90s trend.
So true. Yep.
Mhm. Also
Yep.
like coming back from the dead, I do it all the time.
Yes.
It's a very Taylor theme
Yep.
to return.
Yep.
But the hospital was a drag. Okay, that obviously makes us think of Fortnight.
I was supposed to be sent away, but they forgot to come and get me.
And, you know, the whole Fortnight music video is kind of set in like a psych ward and all
Mhm.
that stuff. But also, like, we have these metaphors of a cage / prison, which seems to refer to her relationship with Joe.
Mhm.
So I think the hospital is Maddie, or at least, if not full Maddie, the hospital is at least that transition time from Joe through Maddie.
Right. It's like the state of mind that she was in during that time was like the
Yeah.
hospital. Yeah.
The temporary insanity that she mentions in her
Yeah.
in summation poem, the mutual manic phase. Like,
Yeah.
she was
Also,
unwell.
in You're Losing Me, she mentions like, have they come to take me away?
No, that's Hits Different.
It's different.
You always do that.
Oh my God. It's different. And
Yeah, but yeah.
then it's like in Fortnite, I was supposed to be sent away, but they forgot to come and get me. It's like basically her insinuating that like that, exactly that transition time between Hits Different, which was Midnight's Joe, and
Mhm.
Maddie, TTPD, is like this sort of state of mind of like the hospital. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks about how the Tortured Poets department in her brain for the music video was like this psych ward or like science lab where like they're dissecting like these poets and like their brains and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I did also like worst sleep that I ever had. I was like Midnights because it's
Yeah.
about those 13 sleepless nights.
Right.
So yeah. And
Mhm.
also I circled you on a map, made me laugh because like when Taylor and Travis first sort of were publicly speculated to be dating, a lot of Swifties were saying that Taylor put Travis on the map.
Right.
Which is hilarious because like that just shows the weird circles of the internet that we like live in, because that's how I
Yeah.
felt.
Yeah,
then,
I
like,
had never heard of him.
My husband, who's like a huge football fan, is like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? He was like, he's probably
Yeah.
the most famous football player right now. And I was like, what? Like,
Well, when all that talk first came out about Travis shooting his shot and like, are they dating? And we didn't know yet.
yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. I think this football player is just like trying to use Taylor's name for like
Clout.
attention or something.
Yeah.
And I was with my brother and his girlfriend who are big Eagles fans because they live in
Mhm.
Philly. And we were talking about it. And his girlfriend was like, blah, 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 Jason. And I said, who's Jason? And she's like, who's Jason? And now looking back on it, like the thought of me not knowing who Jason and Travis Kelce are is crazy.
I mean, for us Swifties, she did put the Kelces
She
on the
put
map.
them on
for
the
us.
map.
Yeah,
Okay.
for us. Okay. We're
Yeah.
delusional. Yeah. Okay. But like,
Yeah.
that was a conversation happening on the internet, was like, Taylor put Travis on the map. It's like, I circled you on the map. Like, well, I mean, like, lyrically, it means like I'm setting my sights on you. Like,
Yeah.
but it is funny. But
Yeah. Because, you could also view it like I manifested you, or
yeah.
you're everything that I was looking for, like kind of
Mhm.
circling like treasure on a map, and like she went and found it.
I also think you could read it as like, not only I manifested you, but like I circled you on a map is like, in a map, like our paths didn't cross yet. We were like circling. I was like circling you. I
Oh,
circled you on a map, you know?
Right.
So like
Uh-huh.
their worlds didn't quite meet yet. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I haven't come around in so long, but I'm coming back so strong. So like you mentioned about Taylor coming back into the spotlight and like coming back to that part of herself,
Mhm.
made me think of Bejeweled.
Yeah.
Hold on, here it is.
Best believe I'm still bejeweled. When I walk in the room, I can still make the whole place shimmer.
Yes.
Because it's like I'm coming back so strong. Like, best believe I'm still bejeweled. I
still
can
got
still
it.
make this whole place shimmer, right?
Yeah. I'm coming back so strong. Yeah.
Yeah, which is also kind of similar to this from You're Losing Me.
Fighting in only your army. Front lines, don't you ignore me. I'm the best thing at this party.
I still can't believe we have the song You're Losing Me.
Yeah.
We should do a whole episode of like songs we can't believe Taylor gave us, because like that is one where I'm like, oh my God, she really did lay it out there. Like, that was insane.
Yeah. That, like, was it petty?
Well, do you remember when it first came out, it was on CDs only at like
at
a
the
specific show? I think it was in Jersey.
I think so.
And I remember being like, what is this song? And eventually the internet sleuths did get it out. But like,
Well, I remember I paid for it. So I think that after the frenzy with it only being on these CDs at this one show,
yeah,
I think she was like, oh crap, I need to just allow people to get this. So I think they put it on her store for like a limited time
crazy
for a digital download.
Yeah. Insane.
Yeah.
And then when we got the timeline of like, oh my God, it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It also like, it's kind of similar to what you're saying about like being back in the spotlight and everything. It also made me think of this line from All Too Well.
Time won't fly, it's like I'm paralyzed by it. I'd like to be my old self again, but I'm still trying to find it after.
Yeah, coming back to herself. Yeah.
Coming back to yourself. Yeah, just, like not being your full self in some way and then deciding to come back. And you come back so strong because you're still bejeweled.
And like a 90s trend. Right?
Yeah.
That is one of Taylor's like classic sort of, concepts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, chorus 1. Here we go.
So when I touch down, call the amateurs and cut them from the team. Ditch the clowns, get the crown, baby, I'm the one to be. 'Cause the sign on your heart said it's still reserved for me. Honestly, who are we to fight the alchemy?
All right.
Touchdown. I remember hearing that being like, oh my God. I do want to say, though, that touchdown, call the amateurs and cut them from the team. Obviously, team touchdown like football.
Mm-hmm.
But also, touchdown could also be on an airplane. Like, touchdown, I'm arriving somewhere.
But you put this in our notes, and I was like, I never thought about it this way before, but it actually makes so much sense. It's like, it's what she's actually saying. She's not talking about making a touchdown or whatever in football, because she says, haven't come around in so long, but I'm coming back so strong. So when I touch down.
Yeah. I'm like she's not doing a touchdown.
Right. But because it's like this whole time I've just had like blinders on, just like hee hee ha ha touchdown. I never really thought about it.
Yeah. You're imagining like Taylor in full like football gear being like, hey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I also
that was really funny to me.
I love the confidence that this line has, because it's like, so when I touch down, like when I'm in your spot, cut the side chicks, cut your roster, cut them from the team, ditch these losers, because like I've arrived. Okay.
Right.
And
which I think it's so funny. Like you immediately latched onto like that idea of cut him from the team, being like, telling like Travis or whoever, like, cut all your side chicks.
Yep.
Because now I'm here, right?
Yeah.
And I've always read it as Taylor ditching her own losers. Like the amateurs being the people who couldn't handle her and her fame.
Yeah. I mean,
cutting them from the team. Like, I'm done with these people.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense for the lens of like returning to her stardom. Like, cut the amateurs, like cut it from the team. Like, we're growing this again. Like, I don't need the losers that are like tagging along and not supporting. Yeah, totally.
But yeah, it can definitely go both ways. So
yeah,
that's
what we love about her lyrics. So yeah. Ditch the clowns, get the crown, baby. I'm the one to beat. It's like so confident. I love it.
Yeah. And I had a lot to say about this line.
Yeah, pop off.
Clowns and crown have been mentioned quite a few times in her discography. So I feel like there's actually a lot going on in this little line. So I think the clowns represent like the people who've messed with her, like personally and with her career over the years, because we have clowns mentioned in Mirror Ball.
And they called off the circus, burned the disco down, when they sent home the horses and the rodeo clowns.
And then also in Peace.
But there's robbers to the east, clowns to the west. I'd give you my sunshine, give you my best, but the rain is always gonna come if you're standing with me.
But also clowns to the west, definitely a little bit of a nod to Kanye West.
Yep.
Him being the clown, right? Also, like when I was pulling these clips, I was just like, man, folklore. Like with Folklore and Evermore, she was cooking.
I don't know how we survived that album. If I look back on it, I'm like, how did we psychologically survive? Because like, what a low point for all of us. And then she drops Mirror Ball.
Just all of it. All of it is so good.
Insane.
So that's clowns, right? And then we've got crown. She has used crown so much.
Yes.
And maybe this song really is about herself, okay? Because I think the crown is her rightful place as a pop star in the spotlight, but also her love. So here's an example of the crown being like her fame and her stardom, her talent. And this is Clara Bow.
The crown is stained by you're the real queen, flesh and blood amongst war machines.
She also talks about crowns in this way in You Need to Calm Down.
But we figured you out. We all know now. We all got crowns. You need to calm down.
And then even in Long Live, she talks about it with like her and her band.
We are the kings and the queens. You traded your baseball cap for a crown.
And then in Call It What You Want, she talks about this crown being taken away from her.
Mm-hmm.
My castle crumbled overnight. I brought a knife to a gunfight. They took the crown, but it's all right.
So then my last example, this is where the crown is more like her love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is Exile.
You were my crown. Now I'm in exile, seeing you out.
Yeah.
So I feel like Get the Crown is like the opposite of tolerated vibes.
Yeah.
Like my love should be celebrated.
Yeah.
Getting the crown is like, I'm bestowing my love onto you. This is like receiving a crown.
Yeah. Wear it. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she says, baby, I'm the one to beat. It's very much like I'm the best thing at this party.
Absolutely. Again, it's that confidence. It's that like coming forward in like her full power finally, because she's been like in this cage in this hospital or, you know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Because the sign on your heart said it's still reserved for me. Okay. So the word that stands out in this lyric to me is reserved.
Mm-hmm.
It's still reserved for me. It's like, okay, so someone in her life, whether it's her fans, the sign in your heart says still reserved. Like these fans have still got a place in their heart for her.
Mm-hmm.
And her music and her, you know, her success. But if you're going to take it through the romantic lens, like I initially was like, this doesn't make sense for Travis because like it's because the sign on your heart said it's still reserved for me. It's like, well, this must be someone she has a past with. Like, could this be a Maddie reference? Because like we know that these two had lingering feelings for each other from their previous affairs in the 2010s.
Yeah.
Maybe. But then you actually reminded me that like Travis admitted that he had a crush on her like in many interviews and like other things before they actually started dating. So like he would have his heart still reserved for her, like,
right.
You know?
Yeah. So this is kind of a tricky lyric where it could totally be read like from this like Maddie perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think if we're talking about it being Travis, I feel like that's probably how we could explain that because there is actual footage of Travis years ago talking about having a crush on Taylor.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Maybe it's just like a really cute reference to that.
The last lyric of this verse is, honestly, who are we to fight the alchemy? Which is like so cheeky and like also, again, very confident of her to say that. Like, honestly, like, who are we to fight this? This is like, this is meant to be. And like alchemy, like the definition of alchemy is like to transform something. And originally it was the transformation of metal into gold or some other material. So when you're fighting the alchemy, it's like something that is transforming. And I forget where I saw this. Maybe it was on Reddit that Travis alchemized a friendship bracelet into a relationship with Taylor, which like that is so perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like kind of why fight destiny, why test fate, like.
Yeah. This is where like part of it being part of the overall story of TTPD, like you could definitely some people even still say like, oh my God, she jumped right to Travis after Maddie, which was right after Joe and like, you know, all that stuff. But she's saying like, we're so good together. Like, why should I fight this?
Right.
Like,
why deny this?
It might seem crazy. It might seem fast. Maybe I shouldn't even be dating right now.
Yeah.
But like, why would I fight this? This is insane.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. who are we to fight the alchemy? It's also like, it's a kind of like a something you would say to the other person if you were having a conversation, right? Like, should we be dating? Like, is this crazy? Like, should we be like, I just met you. Like, should we be like doing this?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, honestly, who are we to fight it?
Right.
It's like a conversation.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
Verse 2.
Verse 2. Here we go.
Hey you, what if I told you we're cool? That child's play back in school is forgiven under my rule. I haven't come around in so long, but I'm making a comeback to where I belong.
Okay. So this verse is a little confusing as well.
Mm-hmm.
The hey you, what if I told you we're cool? Like when it comes to Travis, it's like, what? Like, what are you talking about? But I almost wonder, like, is this a little aside to someone else? Because the hey you feels like she's stepping outside the conversation of this song to address someone new.
Mm-hmm.
Because the rest of the song, she's just like talking to, whoever the subject is or whatever. So for her to say like, hey, you, I don't know. It could be just kind of like cute and like a more direct way to be like, hey, you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But it could also be like someone who's like on the outskirts or someone, that you're kind of pulling in for a second.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole like, what if I told you we're cool? That child's play back in school is forgiven under my rule. If it is Travis, I feel like it could be a little dig at when Travis did the kiss, marry, kill interview. He said he would kiss Taylor and marry Katy Perry. So maybe it's kind of like, okay, I'll forgive you for not trying to marry me back then.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. What do you think about this part?
Well, initially I was like, what's the child play that she would like have to forgive, right? So looking into like the Travis end, I was like, well, Travis was kicked off the football team in college. Like he wasn't an angel. He was kind of like not the bad boy, but like he's talked about how Jason was the golden boy of the family and how he was just constantly kind of like a disappointment because he just wasn't Jason. But like, so like, that child's play back in school would make sense for Travis getting kicked off the football team is forgiven under her will. She's like, I don't really care about your past. We're cool. Like, don't worry about it. Like, people are going to scrutinize you. But like, as far as I'm concerned, you're forgiven. Like, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I also think if you're going to take it from the Taylor coming into her own strength side, hey, you, what if I told you we're cool? That child's play back in school is forgiven under my rule might be an acknowledgement of like how some of her fans sort of fell off for a little bit. Especially I would say like, some people before Folklore and Evermore weren't even like big fans. I think Folklore, I'll speak for myself, like Folklore is when I became like a true Swiftie. And she's saying like, we're cool. Like that child's play back in school is forgiven under my rule. Like maybe you thought like you were cooler than the rest of the fans, or like maybe you thought that like you were above like, or name called me or like whatever. It's forgiven under my rule. I haven't come around in so long, but I'm making a comeback where I belong. Basically saying like, again, I'm returning to the spotlight and your previous words and your previous like things that you might regret that you thought about me is forgiven under my rule. I don't know.
Yeah. I think also it could be like if we are talking about it from Taylor coming back to herself and stepping back into this like role where she belongs and kind of like almost like maturing back into that part of herself, saying, what if I told you we're cool? All that stuff is forgiven under my rule could be about so many things and just a way of saying like, all that crap is behind me. Like I'm not bringing this baggage with me into this next chapter of my life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a mysterious verse.
Yeah, it's not as straightforward as some of the other ones. Then we go to chorus 2, and chorus 2 has a post-chorus. So, should I just play the post-chorus? Yeah, I'll just play the post-chorus.
Yeah, let's jump there.
Okay.
These blokes warm the benches, we've been on a winning streak. He jokes that it's heroin, but this time with an E. 'Cause the sign on your heart said it's still reserved for me. Honestly, who are we to fight the alchemy?
I think, okay, remember how I said I have beef with the production? The chorus production hits so hard. The verse production is just lacking something, and I don't know what it is. I want to understand why my brain has issues with it, but if any other theory nerds wants to unpack it with me, let me know. But back to the lyrics.
Yeah.
These blokes warm the benches. We've been on a winning streak. Okay, so winning streak, obviously football. Benches, football. Blokes equals British slang for boys. So obviously, the subject of this song, if you're going to take it from the romantic lens, is making fun of the British boys of Taylor's past. And this person is not British. These blokes warm the benches. We've been on a winning streak is kind of implying that I'm not a bloke.
Wait, so you think the subject of the song is saying these blokes warm the benches rather than Taylor saying that?
She could say it, but it is interesting to take it from this is something that actually, no, I think it is Taylor because I read the next line. He says that it's heroin, but this time with an E. Which I have a lot to say about. So.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely a dig at her British exes.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, should tell us that the subject of this song is not British.
Yeah. And warming the benches for us non-athletic people is basically saying you're not actually involved in the game. You're kind of second tier. You're not up to snuff. You warm the benches. You're not really doing anything active and involved in the success of whatever.
Also, we've been on a winning streak. From a sports perspective, it also means we are doing so well, like Taylor in the subject, that those blokes will remain on the bench.
Right.
Because why would I pull you out of the game when we're on a winning streak?
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the heroin line.
Okay. So he jokes that it's heroin, but this time with an E. This time with this person, she is the drug, right? The heroine with an E is a female hero, right? That this person idolizes and reveres and all that stuff. So I do see this line as if you're going to read into this was a song originally written about falling in love with Maddie and then changing. He jokes that it's heroin, but this time with an E would be something that a Maddie Healy person would say, because we know that Maddie has struggled with drug use, specifically with heroin. He shared this publicly with Billboard magazine. And he's also written songs where heroin is implied, especially with this song, It's Not Living If It's Not With You. So it is an interesting line because I could see this being said by Maddie, she is his new drug of choice. Do you know what I mean? And also these blokes could be something that a British person would say. These blokes warm the benches is something that a British person would say to their lover, right? Because Maddie is British after all. But I read it more he jokes that it's heroin, but this time with an E. It's almost this high.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, it's definitely way more likely that Maddie would say that than Travis.
Mm-hmm.
Because Travis, I think, has been like very public about how I think he like truly struggles to read. Like,
Yeah,
I
he
don't
definitely has reading.
Did he say he has dyslexia?
I don't want to say that without checking, but like, hold on, let me Google.
Yeah. I feel like I just read that recently.
Yeah. He hasn't formally stated that he has dyslexia, but he did joke about on Saturday Night Live, he particularly has issues with reading comprehension and spelling.
Okay.
So,
yeah, so that's why it's like, I don't think he would make a spelling focused joke.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of fans are speculating that he may be an undiagnosed dyslexic reader. So,
right. Yeah. Very possible.
And like, if you don't know what dyslexia is, like you mix up your letters and it can struggle with like reading and spelling and stuff like that. So like to make a spelling joke for Travis would be a little weird.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. So who knows? But and so if it is from the Travis perspective versus Maddie, then yeah, it's like first was Maddie had heroin for real as his drug, and then for Travis, Taylor is the drug.
Mm-hmm.
Which is cute.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's cute. And so we've already talked about because the sign on your heart said it's still reserved for me.
Mm-hmm.
But also I wanted to play a clip of this section from the surprise song version because it is one of my favorite parts, the way she sings it. But also listen because I never noticed before. I think she kind of does it in the album version, but she sings Blokes with an accent. She says, "These blokes." It's subtle, but it's there. So here's the clip of that.
These blokes wanna bench us, we've been on a winning streak. He jokes in his heroin, but this time with an E. Cause the sign on your heart said it's still reserved for me. Honestly, who would fight the alchemy? Who would fight the alchemy? Who would fight it? Who would fight the alchemy?
I love the way she extends that part at the end there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wish the actual song was more like that.
I wish it was a country song. I'm gonna say it. It needs a "But Daddy, I Love Him" production, honestly. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No, I'm with you on that. The production of this is not my favorite. And I love jazz.
And it's the verses. Like the chorus hits, but like the verses are just like, I don't know. There's something, I don't know.
Yeah. I hear you.
All right, on to the bridge. Here we go.
Shirts off and your friends lift you up over their heads. Beer sticking to the floor. Cheers chanted cause they said there was no chance. Trying to be the greatest in the league. Where's the trophy? He just comes running over to me.
So good.
I do love that part. When I was like coming around to this song, there was a point last fall when I was doing like all my IVF shots and stuff, and I was hopped up on hormones that this song was on, and I was just like working, at my desk, and I was playing my vinyl, and this song was on. And that part came, the "Where's the trophy? He just comes running over to me," and I started crying. And I was like, oh, yes, I am hopped up on hormones right now because this has never happened before.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
it is like,
got to me.
It is like a swelling moment too. Like, it definitely like explodes into this like emotional swell. So it makes sense. It makes sense. We have emotional reactions to music. It's like chemical,
Oh, yeah, so, definitely.
Shirts off and your friends lift you up over their heads. Beer sticking to the floor. Cheers chanted because they said, okay, is that not a locker room? Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is a locker room.
Well, and this part of the song is where you and I like truly flipped out. And
we were like, this is
without a
football
doubt,
song.
we're like, this is a Travis song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because why else would she be writing this stuff? You know?
Especially because, like, there was no chance trying to be the greatest in the league. Where's the trophy? It's basically like, this is the Super Bowl. Like, this is,
Yes.
which we watched, like, happen. We were like, he literally won the Super Bowl. She was, like, on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, insane. Just insanity.
So good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, her saying, they said there was no chance trying to be the greatest in the league can be a reference to Travis winning the Super Bowl 2 years in a row.
Right.
And then also attempting a three-peat.
Right.
But also a reference to him shooting his shot with Taylor.
Right. Like, there's no chance.
There's no chance. You're trying to date Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
you know,
good luck.
like,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, where's the trophy? He just comes running over to me. Of course, makes us all think of that moment when they won the Super Bowl and she comes down and we see them hugging and kissing on the fields. And just like the way he loves her so loudly and adores her, and just seeing them happy together.
It does, like, that moment also reminds me the first time we heard this line from Karma.
Karma is the guy on the screen coming straight home to me.
But instead of, like, Karma is the guy on the screen, it's the first time we heard Karma is the guy on the Chiefs, and we all flipped out. We were like, oh my God! Like, it's the same vibe. It's like...
Definitely.
It's this swell of, like, right before we get to, like, the last chorus, he just comes running over to me. Karma is the guy on the Chiefs coming straight home to me. He's running over to me. He's coming home to me. It's, like, very parallel lyric. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Just happy. Just happy vibes.
It's fun. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Should we do the chorus or should we just skip to the outro?
Let's just get to the outro. Yeah.
Okay.
Pull that up. If I can find it. There it is. Okay.
This happens once every few lifetimes.
Kind of sounds like a clock.
It's just these chemicals hit me like white wine.
Yeah, it's something about the dun dun, the counter melody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, but like I said, it kind of sounds like a clock.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's just like this like back and forth. It kind of what I was saying where like the song's very like steady and measured and like it's just like taking my time. It's like doop, boop.
Yeah.
Boop. Like I'm not rushing. Like I'm right where I need to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But then the chorus is so like explosive.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of makes sense for like the theme of the song, right? Like,
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we were blown with this song because we were like, oh my God, football, Travis. Yeah, like it was crazy.
And Travis has mentioned it at least once as one of his favorite songs.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's kind of confirmation that it's a Travis song.
Yeah, he mentioned So High School, and I think later he mentioned the Alchemy. And another one he always says is he likes is it Blank Space?
Blank Space?
Yeah.
Blank Space.
Because he's a 1989 boy.
Yeah. And then he's also thrown in Cowboy Like Me, which we all kind of figured out because Taylor played it a lot when he was there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something going on, Cowboy Like Me, with the two of them.
Yeah. Which is a bop. Like, what a great song.
I don't know if I would call it a bop, but
it's a bop to me. It's a bop to me. The girl who listens to I Hate It Here and Chloe Sandler, Sophia Marcus, like that is, that's a bop.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't mention this at the start of our episode. While I was traveling, I saw Diana Agron.
Right.
Hello?
That was just a couple days ago.
Seriously, she was literally effervescent. Like, just like
so where were
beautiful.
You?
So
how did you see her?
We were leaving dinner in the Latin Quarter, which is like the West Bank of Paris. It was like one of our last nights in this whole trip. And we were like, let's go out, let's take a walk. And like Luke wanted to like have a little bit more wine, and like we want to sit by the Seine, which is like the thing that Parisians do. It's just like everyone's like hanging out by the river, which is like amazing. And so we like were walking towards the river, and I was navigating with like my phone open, and I put my phone like into my pocket because I could kind of figure out where we were going. And then when I put my phone away, I feel like, and I know where I'm going, like I feel like I like am able to look around more. And I just like, in Paris, they have all these cafes with like these, seats outdoors, and there's just like a million people eating and drinking. Right in front of me was a table of like 4 people. And I noticed her immediately because her hair color was really pretty. It was like this caramelly, like brown, caramelly brown blonde. And I remember being like, oh, I like her outfit. And then I clocked the fact that I'm looking at Diana Agron, because I was like, it was like one of those moments where like you admire a woman, you're like, I love that outfit, or like she looks so pretty, or like whatever. But then when you actually look in their like face and you're like, oh, that's a celebrity.
It's kind of crazy though that you noticed her because you thought she like looked special.
I'm telling you, she was effervescent. Like she literally looked gorgeous. Like like skin glowing, hair. The hair, I thought her hair color was pretty, but then like I clocked the fact that she herself was like a stunning person. And like if it was any other woman, I'd just be like, oh, that was a gorgeous woman, I like her outfit, in my brain. But like then I was like, I just saw Diana Agron.
All right, well, let's get to our favorite lyrics and ratings. So, Laura, you go first.
My favorite lyric is this.
Ditch the clowns, get the crown, baby, I'm the one to be. 'Cause the sign on your heart said it's still reserved for me.
It's just like the confidence that gets me on that one. It's basically like, we haven't really heard Taylor refer to herself as like someone who's should be like chaste, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I just, the confidence is for me. And it's like, everyone's thought that, where they're like, I'm the catch. Like,
yeah.
Just that like confident energy that I like. So as far as rating goes, this is a 7.2 for me. Not a song I turn on. I wouldn't say it's a complete skip for me, but in terms of the original tracks of Tortured Poets Department, it's definitely lower on the scale for me. But I also, again, I understand why it wasn't included. It's an important part of the story of this album and the place that Taylor was at. And yeah, it's mostly to do with that production that I talked about.
I gave it a 7.3. So just a tiny bit higher than you, but basically the same. And this is my favorite lyric.
These blokes swarm the benches, we've been on a winning streak. He jokes that it's heroin, but this time with an E.
Yeah, I just think it's funny. It's a good lyric.
Yeah.
It makes you think. I also like how in the background of this section, she's echoing some of those, or not echoing, but like layering over it. And she's kind of like yelling it like, with an A.
Yeah.
It's just, there's something about that cracks me up. And I enjoy that part of this song.
Spelling is fun.
Right. Yes.
Oh my God. Okay. So this song as a recipe, I like both of our choices. So I said this is like sticky beer can chicken, which is basically like a crock pot sort of meal that you would bring to a football, like game that you're watching with your friends. Basically like Yingling, which is very common here in Pennsylvania, a lager with chicken. And then like I could imagine this being served with like Taylor's seemingly ranch, because the first time she was ever like, I don't know, it just feels like
seemingly ranch.
football food, Yeah. So I did include a link to a kind of like classic beer can chicken. It is a really good flavor. So it's kind of like a staple Pennsylvania, like, I don't know, fall recipe.
Definitely.
Yeah. What is it?
I said this song is pumpkin beer cheese soup because I like that you pulled the beer into it.
Yeah.
And this soup, so I linked to this recipe from spoonforkbacon.com. And years ago, you and I had our pumpkin parties with our friends. And our friends Dave and Kelly used to make this pumpkin beer cheese soup for those parties. And it is so good.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
It's a beautiful golden color. It's also very fall, like football season vibes.
Yeah.
You've got the beer in there. And I was thinking it's also like cozy and comforting, like Travis's love.
For me, it's the color because like it is that golden sort of like alchemy gold.
Yeah.
Like it's a vibe. Yeah. These actually would be very good together. This soup and beer can chicken, like really, really good.
Definitely.
So
for sure.
Just makes you want to tailgate. All right.
I know. Like I'm not ready for summer to be over, but like I'm starting to get excited for fall just a tiny bit.
I'm always ready for fall at all times.
I know, you're
like,
always ready.
When I got back, I was like, this is oppressive. Like, bring me back to the fall. Okay.
It has been very hot here.
And humid. The humidity is just insane. Well, before we sign off, like just as a little teaser, we do have a lot of fun stuff happening on Patreon. And as a shout out, like we are just two ladies who work full-time jobs. And if you love the podcast and just want to like show us some support, we will link our Patreon in the show notes. Our recent episode was on Maroon. And then we also have one on Bejeweled that will be out by this time that you're listening to this. Is that right? Let me think about that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Definitely by the next episode.
Yeah. So Bejeweled, and we're sort of like diving into the other sort of eras of Taylor and Taylor adjacent artists and collaborations with Taylor and all that fun stuff. So if there's any like specific requests that you want to ask us to dissect or get into, Patreon is the place to do that. And, you know, before we like officially sign off, I just want to say that like, yeah, like it essentially costs the same as like getting a coffee at Starbucks. And instead of supporting a corporation, you could support two lovely ladies who are your Swiftie friends from afar, and give ourselves homework.
One bonus episode every month.
Yeah. And access to us. So if you would like to, you know, get more into it, please.
Yeah.
So
that being said, thank you so much for joining us. And if you'd like to support the pod, you can also give us a follow at Blank Plate Pod on TikTok and Instagram. You can check us out on YouTube if you're not already watching us there. And also, if you want to support us but don't have like the money for Patreon, which is totally understandable, you can also just like tell a friend and leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. So that helps as well.
It's a free way to help us out, get more people interested in the show for sure. So you can check out our website at blankplatepodcast.com and send us an email at blankplatepod@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 717-382-8313.
Yeah, and until next time, we had the time of our lives with you.
And you know, it's time to go.
So bye.
Bye.